it's Dena Tollefson, and thank you so much for being here. Today I'm painting on site in Amana, Iowa at Catiri's Art Oasis Gallery. Getting everything set up and ready to start painting live. So normally when I'm seeing you, I'm in my studio, but this time I'm painting in front of a group as part of a painting demonstration for the gallery. So they gave me a solo exhibition with a reception and asked if I would also come up and do a painting demonstration. And I do love to interact with people, so I said absolutely, and it sounds great. It's a little bit more stressful painting in front of people though, because you have to talk and paint at the same time. But it's fun to do, and I encourage you, if you ever get a chance to do that, absolutely do it. Whether it's in plein air or inside of a gallery, it's a lot of fun to paint for a live audience. So I'm using palette knives. This is oil paint, and mixed up a color using phthalo blue red shade and some titanium white, and then applying that with this very narrow painting knife. So painting knives and palette knives, people tend to use the terms interchangeably, so I'll sometimes call it a palette knife or a painting knife, but technically this is a painting knife. The painting knives have a little notched edge so that you don't get your fingers dirty when you're painting. Adding a little bit more titanium white to the palette. And a little trick is to make sure that whenever you put your lid on, whether it's acrylic paint or oil paint like it is here, make sure you always get all the little gunk off the edge of the tube before you put that lid back on. So here's a little close-up of some of the paintings that the gallery has on the wall of mine. And they have a little sign up, or a couple of signs, that say to not touch the paintings. And it's so funny because people will just instinctively come up and touch the work, and I feel like I've really succeeded if you want to touch the work. So it's I'm really aiming for a super tactile expression of that, almost like a lower leaf sculpture in paint. And working on that here on the easel, I started out with toning the canvas with yellow ochre, and then did a underpainting, and then now I'm applying these layers of texture. Just working those in, and I'm careful to not disturb the other little dabs of paint. Since I'm working wet into wet, I'm not landing any of these layers in between here dry, so I'm just kind of navigating in there and being careful not to let the tool touch any of the other wet dabs of paint. Let's get one over here. There we go. And just kind of working that color up on the sky. So all of these colors that you see here were mixed from a limited set of colors, or what we call a limited palette. And rather than purchasing colors that are all different hues, I prefer to mix from a limited palette. And the advantage of doing that is that when you mix your own colors, you'll have control over the hue and the intensity, and as well as whether it's warm or cool, that type of thing. You can really mix your own colors. There's a little yellow ochre, and let's make up another neutral. So I'm mixing a lot of these neutral and grayed down colors so that there's a balance between the bright daubs of paint and the more neutral or nuanced colors. You see how that kind of neutral color plays against the brighter colors, and it kind of ties everything together and makes everything more harmonious when there are a mix of neutrals and brights together, I think, on any one painting, but that's a goal of mine. is to have a mix. I want to have a bright statement, but also have it feel like there's some calming or neutral colors in there as well. So I'm also working to create a sense of movement in the painting, and I'm doing that by tilting my wrist as I'm working and following the basic shapes of color and trying to show through the movement of the paint the vitality and the life of the painting. So they're taking a little break to talk to somebody. So now it's a thing too, this painting is called Chloe's Sky. And all of my Sky series paintings are named from characters of the Bible. And a lot of times people think that Chloe is a contemporary name, but it's actually kind of a really old historic name from the Bible. Chloe was an early Christian, and you don't hear a lot of women's names in the Bible. I mean, you've got Mary and Martha and Ruth and some names like that, but yeah, Chloe is a Bible name. Here's the flyer that the gallery made about the event, and they did have refreshments, and I'll say I did have my share of the refreshments, non-alcoholic refreshments, but cookies and that type of thing. But it was really a wonderful event. And my thanks go out to Ethiel and Janice Catiri of Catiri's Art Oasis Gallery in Amana for hosting such a wonderful event and all the publicity that they did around it. I feel like it was a real success, and it was a really very honored and had a great time doing the event. So my work is available at the gallery year-round, but it's very exciting to have a solo show. Alright, let's get some more white paint up here on the palette. And this gray toned palette that you see that I'm using here is it's a wonderful product I recommend. It's by the brand New Wave, and it's called the Gray Palette. So it's a neutral gray disposable paper, and you can use it with, I use it with oil paint typically, but you can also use it with acrylics. When I'm doing acrylics, I'll usually use like a Masterson Stay Wet palette, that type of thing, to keep the acrylic paint at the right moisture level. But these gray pads are fantastic for oil paint because you don't need your oil paint to be wet, and it can just basically, oil paint can just kind of sit on there, and I've already walked away for hours and come back, and the paint is in really good shape. And it's there are 50 sheets on these little gray pads. They've got a hole for your finger, for your thumb to go through, or you can just set it on top of your tabletop easel like I have here. And then what's nice about them is that they're ergonomically designed, which I appreciate. So, you know, as a full-time artist, I'm always working with paint or other art materials, and it's nice to be able to save your hands and your fingers and your wrists and that type of thing from unnecessary strain. So I do recommend those if you haven't checked out the New Wave gray pads. I encourage you to check those out. So let's get some of our blues up into the sky. So on this painting I'm using two different blues. One of them is phthalo blue red shade, and the other blue is French ultramarine. Now with the same small tool, just a tiny little painting knife, I can use this little mark to make tiny little indications or tiny marks, or I can make larger daubs with that same tool. So it's just how much pressure you put on it and how much paint you load onto each swipe. So just some nice soft yellows here, and the yellows are just a small amount of yellow mixed in with some titanium white to cool it down and lighten it up. So when I'm going and painting either en plein air, which means I'm painting outside, or if I'm at a painting demonstration at a gallery, or maybe a painting demonstration at some type of a speaking event, then what I'll do is I'll make a checklist. So that's another tip, is if you are going to be going to do some painting somewhere, whether it's in front of a group or just with you or a group of other painters, make sure to make a checklist of the things that you'll need. So in the description box, I've made a little checklist. I wrote out all of the things that I put on my checklist, and maybe that will be helpful to you. If there's something that, there's nothing worse than if you're on site and you're painting and all of a sudden you realize, oh my goodness, I don't have everything that I need in my painting kit. And it's, I don't paint outside of my studio often enough to just keep a separate kit of everything. So what I'll do is I've got a checklist, and then I'll assemble everything for the checklist from there, and that makes it easier. Now, if I'm flying somewhere I have 2 galleries that I can't get to by car, so I have to get there by flying. But if I would be flying to a gallery and painting there, then like what I do when I go to Canyon Row Contemporary in Santa Fe, what I'll do is I'll take some of the supplies and ship them ahead to my hotel, and then unpack those when I get there and let the hotel know that there'll be a box coming. And then when I'm on site, because there are a lot of strict rules about flying with paint, or actually artist colors, a lot of artists will take their paint with them, but it always makes me nervous that I'm going to be caught at the thing and they say, hey, you can't take this paint with you. So what I'll do is when I get there, I'll usually go buy small tubes of the individual colors that I'll need, and then I'll typically ship those back with the other supplies that I have that I brought over. So I'll either ship everything ahead or ship some things and then pick those up at a local art store. And then another tip would be, make sure if you're going to be doing that, make sure there's an art store that has the things that you need. You can even call ahead and purchase the items and have them hold them for you. So a little bit of cad orange hue, and the difference between a hue and the actual pigment is a hue is usually a less expensive but safer version. So I always try and, rather than using the cadmiums, I'll use the cadmium hue. And then those kind of peach colors that you see in the sky, that's a mix of the cad orange hue with a little bit of titanium white, and in some cases a small amount of ultramarine blue to gray it down. So now I'm back in my studio, and it's 3 days later, and I've let the painting dry, and I realized that I want to add a few more little daubs of white. I feel like the center of the painting could benefit from a little bit brighter statement of white. So I've got my same palette knife here and some of the titanium white, and just going ahead and putting a few of these daubs on here. And now that the painting has dried slightly, I don't have to be as careful about not smearing. Still can't smear anything. It's going to be 5 to 6 months before the painting can be shipped anywhere or hung on a wall because of the thick daubs. But it is dry enough that I can go ahead and do a little bit of layering. So anyway, thank you so much for being here, and I hope to see you again. It's Dena Tollefson. Bye-bye.